The courtroom went silent the moment she walked in, wearing a faded cardigan, carrying an old notebook, and looking more like a nervous visitor than someone who dared to stand before a Supreme Court-level judge. The judge smirked, tapping his pen, already certain she would crumble under the pressure. "This should be quick," he whispered to the clerk, loud enough for the crowd to hear. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that this simple woman had spent years studying the law in secret, and before the hearing ended, she would expose mistakes even the judge had missed, turning the entire courtroom upside down, and changing his life forever. Before we begin, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Tales and Turns. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our community around the world. She stepped forward carefully, setting her notebook on the desk with hands that trembled only slightly. People behind her snickered, whispering that she was in the wrong place. The judge stared at her with thinly veiled annoyance, flipping through the file as if the case was already decided. He didn't expect her to understand a single legal term, let alone defend herself. But as she stood there, quiet, observant, her eyes tracked every detail in the room, from the misplaced signature on a document to the contradictory statements in the evidence pile. Her heart pounded, but not from fear, from certainty. The judge leaned back, looking down at her as though she were a child interrupting adults. "Do you even understand what you're here for?" he said sharply. A few chuckles rippled across the room. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She had prepared for this moment for months, years even. She didn't have a law degree, but she had spent countless nights reading case files, watching hearings, and studying every piece of legislation relevant to her situation. When she raised her head, her voice was soft but unwavering as she calmly stated the exact clause the judge had overlooked. The courtroom paused. The judge blinked, thrown off for the first time that morning. He shuffled his papers, suddenly unsure. That clause is irrelevant," he muttered, but she stepped forward again, turning to the clerk. Her finger pointed to a document number. According to subsection 14b, this evidence should have been dismissed before the hearing even began. The clerk's eyes widened. She was right. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The judge cleared his throat, irritation flickering into unease as he realized he might be dealing with someone far more prepared than he assumed. As she spoke, confidence began to replace doubt. She laid out timelines, inconsistencies, procedural violations, each point more precise than the last. The opposing attorney frowned, flipping desperately through his binder, searching for a counterpoint that didn't exist. The judge's expression shifted from arrogance to concentration, his pen now scribbling notes instead of tapping dismissively. For the first time in years, someone had challenged him, not with power, status, or titles, but with pure, undeniable knowledge. But her voice wasn't sharp or confrontational. Instead, it carried the steady strength of someone who had been ignored her whole life and refused to be ignored any longer. She recounted the nights she'd spent reading legal dictionaries at her kitchen table, the stack of borrowed books taller than her lamp, and the endless hours spent proving to herself that she wasn't as powerless as the world told her. Her story wasn't one of privilege, but of persistence, something the judge suddenly found himself deeply moved by. By the fifth paragraph of her argument, the atmosphere in the courtroom transformed. The whispers stopped. The judge leaned forward, genuinely listening. Even the opposing attorney lowered his posture, no longer mocking but impressed. She wasn't simply defending herself, she was teaching them all, step by. He cleared his throat, adjusting his robe not out of authority but out of humility. "Your motion is granted," he said quietly. Gasps echoed through the room. "And I owe you an apology." The judge stood, a rare gesture, honoring her not as a simple woman but as someone who had mastered what others spent years studying. She lowered her eyes, overwhelmed, but he gently lifted his hand. "Please," he said, "raise your head. You've earned this moment." Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed toward her, eager for interviews. But all she did was smile softly and shake her head. She wasn't interested in fame. She only wanted fairness, not just for herself, but for anyone else who had ever been underestimated. As she walked down the courthouse steps, the judge watched from inside through the tall windows, reflecting on his own arrogance. Her determination had done more than win a case, it had made him question the kind of judge he had become. And from that day forward, he changed. He listened more closely, treated every person, no matter how they looked or dressed, with dignity, and carried her story in his mind as a reminder that brilliance often hides behind humble appearances. She had changed the courtroom that day, but more importantly, she had changed him, forever.